because in that span of from real estate to business ownership, what people don't realize is that, my friends were going on family vacations, and going to Whistler and Palm Springs and Hawaii and doing all these things, camping. And we were business owners, we were independent business owners. And those things don't happen because someone's got to work the store, someone's got to go get
Yeah,
inventory.
no
Someone's
doubt.
got to do this. And so, I got to see a lot of that from the back end of the business. But then once we got into franchising and we started scaling, like we talk about today, and that's why it's so, personal for me, is those family vacations started coming back. Like not even coming back, it started happening. Like we started seeing some of our time come back. Why was that? It's because there was somebody there giving us the playbook to execute on.
Yo, this is the Streetwise podcast. We're here to help you level up your game, level up your leadership, and level up your life. I'm your host, Matthew McReynolds. I'm a multi-brand franchisee, and I'm a franchise consultant, which means I help people find, launch, and build their ideal franchise business. Our main goal is to help you get off of zero and become the person that your dreams need you to be. Buckle up, get your popcorn ready. Let's go.
Yeah, we're going. Let's go. All right, Streetwise Nation. Today we got Sung Om from FranDevCO with us today. Sung, how you doing, brother?
Man, I'm doing good, man. Always good. Always good. Today is a beautiful day. It's Tuesday. We're in Charlotte, North Carolina, living the dream out here right now, man.
Wow. Okay. You had to hit me with that. My wife, man, she's trying to that's on the bucket list of places that we either need to visit or need to live. She's about that East Coast life. So give me some highs real quick of being out there on the East Coast. What do you love about it?
One is coming from rainy Seattle, Washington, I'll tell you that there are more sunny days than there are overcasted days. And that's a big thing for us. Yeah, that's huge.
Big.
Me and my wife getting that vitamin D, waking up to that sunshine has been awesome. The Southern hospitality is real. I will tell you that.
Okay.
That definitely is real. I'm a big golfer. So, I tell a lot of my friends back home that when I moved down here, like we golf a lot back in Seattle and we got that, but like it's a religion down here, like golfing is it's different. It's different. People really really take it seriously, or it's a massive culture. Growing up where we did, and then everything's close. Like it's 3 hours to drive to Charleston.
Distant. Okay.
It's 3 hours to Atlanta. It's just these major cities that we talked about in Seattle. In Seattle, you drive 3 hours, you run into Portland, Oregon. You run into Vancouver, BC.
Okay.
That's really about it.
Up there.
You know what I mean? Like that's really about it. So like you're not getting a lot, and that's a big differentiator. I think you can drive a lot of places and see some of that. So that it's been good. It's been good for the family.
Oh, that's dope, man. Okay, so I definitely have something to look forward to and aspire to.
Get down here, buddy. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. All right, it's on the list, man. Trust me. So, FranDevCO, tell me about it. What's y'all's key mission? What's your objective? What are you guys working on right now and building? What's your mission?
Yeah, so like there's two things that we focus on here at FranDevCO. One is I would say three as an underlier, but number one is we are really intentionally trying to rebuild and support small business America through franchising. How we do that is we work with the emerging space, some mature brands for sure, but focus mostly on the emerging space, and we focus on helping them take their great brand that they have done so well in building and help them scale into great franchisors, because not every small business in America today, believe it or not, is set up to be a franchisor, right? So that's what we really do. We work with them. I think, Matthew, a lot of the times that when you see a brand that we bring into the industry, you don't realize the 6, 7, 8, 9, 12 months that we've spent working with the brand on the backside to help make sure that they're growing and building their infrastructure, making sure they have their points of differentiation, that they have scalability, they have technology, CRMs, branding, marketing, advertising. We really take into account that full service of development. And by the time we launch them into helping them scale, which is the derivative of what we do, right, is we're able to help sell locations and bring on investors into their business model and believers. And that's really what we focus on a day-to-day basis. And then, since we do work inside of this beautiful business model that we believe in called franchising, we want to
Let's
be
go.
responsible stewards of franchising, right? We want to make sure that we're finding the right brands that can scale, and then we're assisting them into helping get these locations open, operating, and as profitable as we can. Obviously, there's a lot of variables in that statement, but ultimately, we're hoping that that support side of the business is there, so that someone like like my father and my mother, when they came to America and they invested into franchising, not knowing a lot of things, that they were able to utilize those resources to help them build their business. So those are things that we are very intentional about.
Oh, that's beautiful, man. So I've gotten criticism on this podcast before with my growing audience, which I love, by the way, is I get really excited and I start vibing with the guests and what they're doing. And some of the newer people to franchising into the industry want us to slow down a little bit and walk them through the process, because these guys are transitioning into the space. And so I'd like to take a moment and kind of break down some things that you talked about within just the high level and break it back down. So you guys are essentially an FSO, correct? Is there more to it than that?
That is what that's what the industry it uses as a vernacular, a franchise sales organization. For sure. And look, I like to tell people that we're like, once again, we are a derivative of your sales department, and that's our byproduct. But we were very intentional in calling FranDevCO Franchise Development Company, because we focus on the development of the brand. We really spend a lot of time in helping them build that infrastructure. And then operationally, as they go through it, we're very intentionally about the talent that we've brought into the organization to make sure that we can help grow your organization and give you those milestones, whether it's, hey, we have 10 franchisees now. How do we operate? What do we do for an annual convention? What's the next position that we should be hiring, to help support our franchisees? What does that job description look like? What is that role ideally? Do you have somebody in mind that could fit that for us? And, I think those are the elements that we bring to the table. That's more than just, the derivative side of the business. But we also focus on, hey, if you're a brick and mortar business, who's helping you with your site selection? Who's project managing that, right? How are you getting those things open? Who's helping you negotiate your lease? How are you supporting your franchisees in the build out and construction and managing the timeline of their investment, so that they can, start recouping some of the dollars they're outlaying and start making some of that back, right? So those are the aspects that we work for. And then obviously there's different layers to that, but just to answer your question briefly, that's some of the areas that we focus on. Yeah.
Okay, so love that. Thank you. You met the energy. That was awesome. So it's fair to say a very key differentiator between you guys and a standard franchise sales organization is a standard FSO or franchise sales organization is going to work in specifically the selling of the franchises, where you guys are helping them actually build out, scale, and become successful major market franchisors. Fair to say?
Correct.
Awesome.
We have a couple of unique business partners within the organization today that, look, I mean, we talk about it all the time, but 95% of franchises don't get to 100 locations open and operating. Those are big milestones for franchisors, and we happen to have a couple of unique partners that have been able to scale their businesses for 25 plus years and growing it over 250 locations, and we take that knowledge and we transfer that knowledge as best as we can to the principals or the CEOs or the founders of the brand, so that they can, hopefully become a part of that statistic,
What's going on, everybody? I hope you're liking the conversation this far. Please take a moment, give it a 5-star review. It really helps spread this out to as many people as possible. All right, let's get back to the episode.
Love that. Okay, cool. So you had said earlier the phrase responsible franchising. Let me take a minute and explain to me what you mean by what is responsible franchising and what is not responsible
Oh,
franchising.
that's a loaded question, Matthew. But look,
Okay, my
responsible
bad.
franchising. No, I love it. I think you
Come on
nailed it.
with it.
Responsible franchising is being a steward of this business model that we love, call franchising. Right?
Yeah.
Franchising, to me, is a way to diversify someone's portfolio, or a way for someone to come into a business for the first time, with easier to getting funding, and the requirements are to get that support system. From a franchise development company, what responsible franchising means to us is how many units a year is viable for a franchisor to open, right? I mean, that's something that's real to us, being
Yeah.
stewards of the clients that we're working with as they're investing $100,000 into a business, or $1 million into a brick and mortar business, right? There's
Wow.
different variances in doing that, but ultimately it's about how do we get them open. We are not a franchise sales organization, even though that's a byproduct of what we do, because our intention is to help you get these locations open, operating, and as profitable as we can. That is our true intention. And if we don't feel like the franchisor has the ability to open those locations, responsible to me is, does it make sense for us to sell those locations? Right. So
Got it.
really being stewards of what we're looking for within a qualified candidate. Do they meet the requirements financially? On top of that, is it a good fit? Obviously we don't have a crystal ball to say, hey, Matt, you're going to be a great franchisee. We don't know that, but to our best ability, do we have enough indicators that show us that this is probably a good fit for you? And if you're going to buy 3 to 5 locations, can we help you get those 3 to 5 locations open in a
Mm.
responsible manner, so that you can recoup the dollars of investments that you're putting in?
Okay, so that opens up a pretty interesting part of your business, because you're working with the franchisors, but
Correct.
also the franchisees or franchisee candidates coming in. And so this hits well because there's two different ways that this question could be answered, whether answering it for the franchisor perspective or franchisee. I want to eventually get to both, but why should somebody not consider franchising their business or getting into franchising? So maybe if we could start from the franchisor perspective or potential franchisor, why would somebody that has, a mom and pop, a single location, why would they not want to consider franchising that business?
Great question. Look, I mean, I think that there's a plethora of ways to answer that question. I'll give you one
Okay.
example.
Yeah. Come on.
Small business owners that are out there scaling their business, they have 3, 5 locations. They're making let's just assume that doing gross revenues at $500,000 or more. And, they have a nice return on their investment, and they scale their business, and they can take that money and they can go open another business, and they can take that and recoup that capital. Franchising is different than that, right? You're no longer going out and opening your own locations and making that return, but you're now supporting others to take a percentage of the revenue that they're making. So
Right.
you have to scale the business to a large number to make a similar type of return as you would if you were to open your own locations, and the cost of capital is very much different. And I think that is fundamentally different for every business owner that's out there, right? What do you want to do? Right? I got a great example. I got a buddy of mine that owns, I think, 14, coffee shops up in the Seattle location. He does very, very well financially, and he has a great return on his investment per location, and doesn't see, the short-term or long-term benefits of franchising his business, right? He would rather take, the return, cash on cash return, versus the
Sure.
scale of 5, 10, 15 years. And that's different for everybody, because the road is a little longer when it comes to franchising to get to 30, 40, 50 locations, royalty sufficient, and then in that process, Matt, what you're also doing is you're building an organization. Most of the time,
Yeah.
you're reinvesting that capital back into your business to grow it into a larger, organization. And that's just not for everybody.
Oh, love that. Love that. Okay. So that was really good. That helps me. So my next line of questioning, if somebody, because I talk to people all the time, I do a lot of networking, and a lot of these guys have these businesses and they do want to scale it into a franchise. And because I'm in the space, they talk to me. And so I love having this resource as, go listen to this episode. What are the first steps that a single business owner, an owner operator of their own business, what do they need to do? What are the first few steps to become a franchisor, a franchise parent company?
Uh, God, the first thing that I look for is POD, right? What is your point of differentiation in the
Mm,
industry that you're in? Like, do you have something that's truly, truly different about what you're doing that makes you a huge differentiator from your competitors, right? Especially if you only have one location, right? That to me is something that I would question. Like if I was going through an evaluation form and
yeah.
someone said I have one business that's doing really well and I have a point of differentiation, my question to them immediately is why haven't you yourself scaled to a second, third, fourth, fifth location, and why
In a
haven't you
different
gone to
market.
it? Yeah, and why haven't you gone out to another major market or another secondary market to see if that model is scalable? And if you haven't, then why would someone believe in that business model truly being scalable? Right? Those are questions
That's good.
that I think anybody should just ask upfront, right? One location, does it really mean that it's a franchise? Unless there's technology or there's a point of, there's the barrier to entry into the industry that they've really solved. But that POD needs to be pretty dramatic, in my point, to really be able to scale one location to 100 across the US. Now,
Oh, that's good. Okay, let's
I
go.
look for brands and I look for company owners that have done the lab, right? That have taken one location
Yep.
onto multiple locations, or maybe they have one location and even better, a customer of theirs came in and said, Matt, I love your business model so much.
Love
I
it.
want to go open number two. You know, to me, that's proof in itself that shows that the model is 100% valuable, it's attractive, it's got PODs in it to where your own customer is saying, I want to go open one of these too. Like what other validation do you need right there? And then
That's
how
huge.
long have you been running your business? Have you been running your
Okay.
business for 1 or 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? Right. Those are also check boxes that we look for in our evaluation to make sure that they have the experience to go really build the business.
Love it. Yeah, you hear the term riches in the niches. And I guess the flip side
Yeah.
of that is, I'm in the DFW market. And so I live in Murphy, Texas. And so there could be a specific problem within Murphy, Texas that I can solve. But just because
Yeah.
I can build a big business because I solved the problem in Murphy, Texas, doesn't mean somebody in Nashville is going to be able to take my model and replicate it if it's too niche. So there has to be a differentiator, but it also has to be replicatable and put in different markets because every market is different. Every
100%.
market is different. And just as I'm on the soapbox, man, for franchisees that are looking at brands, you have to understand that. And if you're looking at a specific concept, just because a brand is available in your area, make sure that how many competitive brands are also in the area doing the same thing. Is there a space for you? Anyway,
Yep.
let me step off my soapbox and let's turn the. No, that was good though, man. You got me fired up.
I love
Uh,
it.
let's talk about from the franchisee side. What do you guys look for in franchisee candidates, and where do you maybe stray individuals away from franchise ownership?
Look, I mean, I know, I've heard it on podcast interviews that you've done in the past, and I'll reiterate it today. Like, you got to follow the process. We are
Mm,
looking for people to come in to execute on the playbook that has been
yeah,
created by the franchisor, right? This is something I learned early on in my franchising days is you ask the top 10 percentile of any franchise successful system out there, whether that be Taco Bell, whether that be, Mr. Handyman, whether that be, McDonald's. And you ask them, what is the key to your success, Matthew? What do you attribute to your success. And they're going to say, look, man, the company's got this playbook that I execute on. The playbook works and I follow it to a T. And that is what it's allowed me to build my portfolio and my success. And then you go and ask the bottom 10 percentile of that same system, and the franchisees are going to sit there and say, the playbook's broken. The playbook doesn't work, right? I followed it or I didn't follow it. It just didn't work for me. It's not me, it's the playbook, right? So then who's right in a situation like that, right? So for me, what I've learned is every individual is different. Your motivation is different than my motivation.
Sure.
Right? But what I've learned from successful business owners is that they are self-motivated. They're out there eager to learn. They want to get better and better and better every single day, right? And they want to achieve that, and they follow a system, and their pride isn't big enough or too big for them to go out and ask for help, right? And those are fundamental things that I've seen my family and how they've been able to scale their business and their success is because they're not afraid to go out and ask for help when we run into an issue and say, hey, like I've never run into this issue before. Can you help me? And then go out and do that, because Matt, as you know, in business, when you have issues, it's cost of capital. And that's the reality of the world that we live in. And so how quickly can we find the answer? And then on top of that, how quickly can we find the right answer to help solve that issue? And I think franchisees and business owners that are able to network, reach out to their peers, be likable, you know what I mean? Follow a process, are the ones that are in a system that are the most successful in that system. And I'm not saying everybody's like that, but man, if you can follow a playbook, like even during our discovery process and our educational process of any of the brands we represent, we're giving homework to we're giving homework to our candidates, whether they know it or not. We're saying, hey, we're going to go do this for you, but can you go do this in the meantime? And right away if this person goes out and does that or not. And look, if they can't take the time and energy to go do that, that is an indicator for us to say, maybe it's, you're going to do the same thing when you become a franchise owner, right? So really, really gauging, that I think is key in finding potentially the right franchisee. Now, I've also learned this too, is that there is no crystal ball. You don't know, but what I have seen in individuals is that once you cut that first check, it becomes really real, when you start, you know what I mean? When you see that franchise fee and that investment go out, you see a different spark in people. So you can never say that it is a foolproof, right? But we do look for people that are looking to be motivated and to be the right fit for the brand, right? The brand also spends a lot of time and energy. This also goes to the longevity of the business. If they have multiple locations, if they have other franchise owners already, they have an idea of who their ideal candidate is, and I think that's also, an area that we work with as well.
Yo, thanks for listening this far. It's at this point in the episode that I want to talk about Streetwise franchising, teaching, training, building. Streetwise franchising. As a franchise consultant, it's my job, it's my absolute pleasure, and it's my mission to help aspiring entrepreneurs find, launch, and build their ideal business. I've been a franchise owner for almost a decade. I know what it means to struggle. I know what it means to build a team. If you're ready to get off of zero, if you're ready to build something for yourself, visit streetwisefranchising.com. Let's get the conversation started. Don't wait until tomorrow to build your future. It starts today. Streetwise franchising. Stay humble, stay hungry, stay streetwise. Let's get back to the episode.
Love that. Yeah, everybody's vision for what they want to build is different. And that's such an interesting thing about franchising, is that you have these individuals from all over the country with so many different backgrounds that they might find a brand that just so happens to fulfill a problem or help them achieve the bigger goal of what they're trying for their own personal legacy. And it's not always the same. And that's why I love when I talk to candidates on my side, it's not necessarily about the widget in and of itself, but what the widget can do for helping you take that step in achieving your personal legacy. And I think that's really cool. And for you guys to educate candidates on that is super imperative in the process. So good stuff. So for you guys, when you're looking at brands, maybe how many brands do you guys represent? What type of brands are you looking for? And what's a strategy for kind of building out that piece of the business?
Great question. Great question. I actually was talking about this earlier today with a mentor of mine.
Nice.
And, and look, we look at consumer data, quite a bit. We want feedback from, the consumers because we are a consuming nation. Where's the need? We take macro and microeconomic indicators, housing being one of them, what's going on with the housing market. Obviously, Matt, you've seen it over the last, 3-4 years, especially during COVID, the home service space has boomed. Right. And I don't think that that's a byproduct of COVID. I think that's a byproduct of the housing shortage. I also think that's a byproduct of the nuclear family. Right. Like, Matt, you and I are like, our family is different than it was 100 years ago. Right? My grandpa and grandmother used to do everything around the house. Now I work full time. Most likely the wife works full time and we got kids. Right. So like, what are we doing around the house when our kids are in tennis practice and piano lessons and going into STEM classes? And they grew up with computers in their classroom where, my generation, computers were brought in. Right. So like these are, you know what I mean? These are fundamental things that we look at when we're looking at brands is where is the consumer spending their time and energy, and how can we better that service in that industry? So, I nailed a couple right away. Home service is a space that I still think is predominantly there because we can't build houses quick enough. And because of that reason, the average home in America today is older and need renovation. They need upkeep. They need to be, they need to be brought up, back up to spec, right? And then on top of that, it goes into if your husband's working and the spouse is working, where's the child? Who is watching my children? Like, what program?
Who's watching the kids?
Who's watching the kids? What program help the children, right? So we look at that.
Yeah.
God, 100 years ago, I don't know this for a fact, so let's not quote this as a fact. But 100 years ago, if your dog died, you buried it in the backyard. If you accidentally ran over someone's car, or dog on accident or whatever it was, like, you didn't get into a lot of trouble. You'd let the homeowner know and, things of that nature, you make it right. Today, you can get in a lot of trouble for doing that kind of stuff. And why do I bring that up? Is because now your pet has become your child, right? So there's a lot of things happening within the pet industry today that is a growing vertical. So I look at children, I look at home, I look at pets. And then on top of that, on the consumer side, internet is real. The internet is 100% undefeated, right? We're getting more information today than we ever have before, right? I talk about this with a mentor of mine too. Like, this phone that we have in our hand, like, they got people to the moon with less technology. You know what I mean? And today we're getting information on a regular basis more than, like, I don't know if humans were ever supposed to be, processing this much data, to be honest with you. And in that same spect, with us taking all this data and this energy and this industry that we're in, is what are we consuming? Like, what are we putting in our bodies? How are we better taking care of our healthcare, right? I mean, you hear LeBron James and Russell Wilson as two examples. These guys spend $1 million, $2 million a year on their health, right? So
no doubt.
So I also look at the health and wellness as a vertical that is a big need in America today. I don't think there's enough, facilities and enough healthcare facilities and things of that nature that are out there to make sure that the consumer is getting the right nutrition. My wife is a huge nutritionist. She's very health oriented, and I've learned that with the mass production of agriculture and goods, that to get the same nutrition from consuming bananas, I'd have to eat 10 times or 12 times more bananas than they used to, right? So, you know,
Wow.
uh, like what can we do in that space, right? So those areas, those indicators, those macro indicators are areas that we begin looking into. And then I love to travel. Like I absolutely, it's a passion of mine. I like to do it more than probably my wife would like with two toddlers at home. But I do. I like to go see what people are doing in their towns and their cities and helping better them as business owners. And if that could be a good potential for the next franchise in that space, right? So those are probably just a handful of things that we look for on a day-to-day basis on where to kind of point our nose in the next brand that we like to elevate.
Oh, I love that. That's super helpful. And so thank you for breaking it down like that because it's real. It comes out of like your personal interest, but also your savviness for seeing opportunities. And therefore, a potential franchisee should also be considering these industries whenever they're looking at, all right, how can I make a wave with something that's defined and I can get into and hit the ground running? It's really cool. You've talked about this a few times. So I'll be remiss if we didn't take the initiative to dig into it.
Yeah.
Mentors, man, how have
Yeah.
mentors played into your personal development and the development of the business and your career, personal but also professional?
Yeah, man. There's one big word that sticks out to me all the time, and that's accountability.
Oh,
Right?
okay.
Mentors create accountability for me. Right? I'm not gonna have someone mentor me and talk to them once a year. You know what I mean? Like there's got to be a consistency in our conversations so that there's accountability coming from the other side. We talk a lot in this generation, and in the world that we live in sales and development. And I want to make sure that if I'm saying it, I'm keeping there. Someone's keeping me accountable, other than just myself and my own moral being to do that, and that's real. As much as I am trying to do that in the checklist every single day, every single month, and every single year, whether that's being a business leader, whether that's being a father, a husband, a son. I want accountability for myself, and if you just keep it inside, it's just too much. It's just too much to do. So I look for mentors that are going to speak into my life, but also keep me accountable. So that's one. Two, I look for mentors that have gone out and done it. You know, that have kind of walked the walk. I grew up in a generation where it was do what I say, not what I do. You know, and
Yeah.
I'd rather see people show me what they've done and help me keep myself accountable so I can do something similar. Right? It doesn't need to be the exact same thing, but if I'm able to better myself through that process, and mentors come in all shapes and sizes, right, and ages, man. Like a mentor doesn't need to be someone that's 60, 70 years old, has a best-selling book, and they're doing it. It could be a mentor that's younger than you. I have a couple of mentors right now that are younger than me. They've achieved things in the sporting world or the professional world that is greater than most people have achieved in their entire lives, and they retired at 28, 29 years old, and I really look to them to talk to me about a lot of the things that they've gone through that journey. I have mentors that are older than me that have gone through it too as well. But I think a blend of that is something for everybody. And you don't need a lot. I think that's another thing. Like you don't need a lot, you know. Um, but I think that having someone, maybe a couple, speaking to your life on a daily basis helps alleviate that as well.
Yeah, it's so true. I appreciate that answer. We're called a mentor and to be mentored, and I
Yeah.
firmly believe in that as well. So back us up a little bit, man. How did you get into? I mean, you're in a pretty big role, man. You got people under you. You're doing your thing. You guys are. I mean, we met at the Franchise
Yep.
conference back
Yep.
in January of 2024, and so how did you take the steps that you needed to take to get where you are today? Maybe tell me about that journey a little bit for the listener.
Yeah, man. I wouldn't do it justice by not starting from the beginning, because it really started from the roots of my family. My dad came over here in 1970. He was 16, 17 years old. Back then, growing up in South Korea, you have to join and enlist in the army. Actually, you still do today, actually, by the way. You have to serve your country for 2 years. And he had to do that at 16. He enlisted. A small world called Vietnam broke out during that time. He came over to the U.S. and did 2 tours of Nam. After he served in the Corps, he got educated in the U.S. culture and the U.S. dream, and back then in Korea, like to own a business and to own real estate was just something that was unfathomable, right? It just wasn't. There's not a lot of land, so to follow the American dream here, he followed it west to Seattle. There was a small group of Koreans that were kind of migrating over to this market, that market at the time. He got into real estate. He started, selling real estate and kind of really just grabbed the bulls by the horn. He saw what was out there, and from there we got into restaurants. We did a couple diners. He parlayed that into opening some retail locations and convenience stores. He was also still brokeraging at the same time. So he was seeing what people were buying and selling from a business standpoint and commercial standpoint. And he went from residential to commercial and really kind of grew that portfolio. And then, God, about 25 years ago, we got into, a good financial position and really parlayed that into our first large investment into a Travelodge hotel. We ended up getting into the 2-star, 2.5-star, 3-star market, and then really fell in love with franchising at that point, right? I mean, it was all the different elements that we talked about, because in that span of from real estate to business ownership, what people don't realize is that, my friends were going on family vacations, and going to Whistler and Palm Springs and Hawaii and doing all these things, camping, and we were business owners. We were independent business owners, and those things don't happen because someone's got to work the store. Someone's got to go get inventory.
No doubt.
Got to do this, and so I got to see a lot of that from the back end of the business. But then once we got into franchising, and we started scaling, like we talk about today, and that's why it's so personal for me, is those family vacations started coming back. Like not even coming back, it started happening. Like we started seeing some of our time come back. And why was that? It's because there was somebody there giving us the playbook to execute on. And then we followed the playbook. And then we were able to set up an organization. And then we were able to scale the business so that we were no longer working in the business every single day, but we were working on the business. And that really freed up a lot for us. And that really changed, I think, the trajectory of at least our family portfolio, which ended up getting into La Quintas and Holiday Inn Expresses and Best Westerns. And that really changed the dynamic, was franchising. Now, did we like the fact that at the beginning when we were evaluating that they asked for a royalty? No, because we were always used to taking it ourselves. We were used to giving that brand fund and that marketing fee. No, because we were doing that all of ourselves. And all of a sudden, now we're giving away 8, 10, 12% of our revenue for what? And what we got back from that was more valuable than that 12%, right? And that truly is why FranDevCO is here today. But we've gone through some tough times, right? We've gone through the .com bust. We went through 01 when the towers came down. We went through 08 when the mortgage crisis happened. And we just went through COVID. So we are seasoned business owners. We understand what it takes to make it through those tough times. We were also leveraged. We took debt on during that time as well, as we talk about a lot through the SBA. So we also know what it's like leveraging, using debt as a vehicle, which we truly believe in, to build your businesses. But that really became, we saw a lot through that time. And after 08, we kind of looked at each other and said, we all have our eggs in one basket. I'm the youngest of the family. So like I was kind of the short straw, and they were like, let's go. You should go back to the corporate America. We should diversify our income instead of all of us being in one bucket. And Got into a company called Guidant Financial that, does
Okay.
does SBA and a ROBS program. I wanted to learn about this thing called ROBS to see if it was a true vehicle or if it was, a loophole.
Yeah.
And learned a lot about it. Learned that we were franchising, franchises. We were funding franchises. I got recruited by a company called Driven Brands out here in Charlotte that owned Mako, Meineke, CarStar, Take 5 Oil Change. Got to be with them to grow their business internally. Saw them exit to Warwick Capital and what that looked like from the inside. At the time, we were kind of already going around in the circle, the industry that we're in now, right? Conferences like FranChoice and other brokerage groups that are out there. Got recruited by a company called St. Gregory Development Group out of Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay.
And believe it or not, guys, that's ground zero for Cycle Bar. That's where it started. So Exponential Fitness and what they're building, what Anthony's doing in Santa Barbara, the beautiful machine that he's created and the brand. A lot of that was originated in Cincinnati, Ohio. The partners
Very
there.
interesting.
Yeah, they had Cycle Bar, they had Club Pilates, they had Stretch Labs and Row House, and we were representing Salons by JC. And really, it was the first time for me to see what I wanted to do. They were working with business owners in the emerging space and helping them grow into franchises. So I really gravitated towards that business model. But at the same time, like real estate was getting out of control. And like, if you heard the story earlier, real estate was our background, right? Like my dad was in it from day one, and inline A, class A real estate was getting, $55 a square foot plus triple net cam. Like it was getting out of control. Like in some cases it was getting up to $75 a square foot. And internally in our family conversations, there was writing on the wall. Like it just couldn't sustain that. Right. And so I wanted to learn the service side of the P&L in the business. So I ended up going to a small company in Waco, Texas called Neighborly.
Oh.
Yeah, Neighborly being the largest home service, company in the world.
Yeah.
If they want to still use that as the coin, obviously 27 different companies underneath them. Really got to understand the non-brick and mortar business, the value of non-brick and mortar business, how to evaluate, service brands in that space. I actually did work on Mosquito Joe's.
Let's
I
go.
did Mr. Handyman, Molly Maids. So I really got to see a lot of that. I loved it. But what I really loved was getting back to working with the emerging brands, right? So that's where
Got it.
FranDevCO started, man. Really, it was I had a calling and a passion to help emerging brands grow, and that's where I went back to. But finance, brick and mortar, emerging space, boutique fitness, all the sexy stuff that's out there, to the non-sexy, which is, the home service space, the things that people don't realize they have to do, but they don't want to do. And then I started looking for, business owners that I could help. And that's where FranDevCO started.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I got to take a second. I'm about to flip this table. That
Let's go.
story is the true testament and validation for why the Streetwise podcast even exists. It's the idea that you can start in a place, and it doesn't matter where you came from. You can start in a place, absorb the resources around you, continue to flip them, and come out on another level, and then do it again and do it again and do it again. Everything that you need to do to get exactly where you've called to be, you have those resources. It might not be easy. It might not look like it's real. It might look like a far off dream, but just the testament of your family, man, that is absolutely outstanding. So I appreciate you sharing that story.
Look, there's
so much.
There's so much there. And this is where I will tell anybody that has ever reached out to me for any type of mentoring or any type of advice. Like the quick get rich schemes are what they are. They're schemes. I don't believe in them. Rome wasn't built overnight. It's brick by brick. Every level of where you are in your life, you're supposed to be in. And you will get to where you need to be if you believe in that calling and you continue taking the steps forward, and I truly believe in that. So every step of the way, I've had people that have poured into my life. I wouldn't be here today. I was actually texting with one of them earlier today, two of them, about, man, I cherish every level of education that I got from them, whether it was direct or indirect, because those allowed me to be in the seat today to help others get to where they are. And as corny as that sounds, that's true. That's the real essence of it. And I'm very passionate about that. If you can't tell, that's really what I'm about.
Facts. Oh, love
Yep.
that, man. Well, you're fitting in just well on the franchise stage. It's really cool to see what you're doing. And the other thing I wanted to say in regards to franchising, um, it's just such an interesting industry. I mean, just to hear your story and how you've navigated through and how it was initially a way for you guys to kind of pivot and differentiate yourselves within your own family and the family business, but to see the growth and the opportunities in moving around within different spaces, I resonate with that because I'm trying to do the same thing in a different way on my end. Being a franchisee now as a consultant, I can see behind the curtain a little bit. I interact with people at a different level, and it's really cool. So, Streetwise Nation, appreciate you for sure. What do you
Man,
guys?
you're changing lives, Matt. Whether you think so
Yeah.
or not, day to day, you're changing lives. That's what we're doing.
Man, amen. Amen. What have been some personal kind of pivots or things that you yourself have had to maybe like autocorrect your mindset on? Maybe there's some blind spots that you've had to navigate through as you build it. I mean, it could be family, it could be health, anything. What personally have you kind of had to pivot and overcome on this journey?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Uh, Man, my mindset. My
Yeah.
mindset. I used to think that I deserved it. Like I was supposed to have it,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I like that mindset was real. Like I was like why isn't it happening? Instead of how do I work harder to make it happen? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Facts.
that's a real mindset shift. You know, I had to really grow up to
How'd you do
change.
it, man? How'd you overcome that? Are you
God,
still struggling with it?
God. I mean, not to get religious on your podcast that we're
Come
talking
on, man.
about.
Let's go.
You know, I'm a big Jesus believer. Uh, I was born and raised Catholic, so it's a little bit different. You go to mass, you go to confession, and you show up for Easter and Christmas, and you give something up for Lent, and you know.
Yeah.
But you know, I got my wife, my pastor today, who I just visited last week, and you know, just being accountable to that. But it really changed my life. Like I was more of like an Old Testament guy, you know, like these are the rules, these are the laws, these are the 10 commandments. You need to follow them, and you're good, right? To like Jesus walked this earth, and he kind of showed you the path, and like your job now is to learn from that and to do that as much as you can, and work every day towards that instead of sitting there thinking that you deserve it or you were born with it. Like you, like I don't, that mind shift changed for me from poor me to I'm grateful. I'm grateful today. I'm thankful. I'm very thankful for the challenges. I'm very thankful for the lack of sleep that my 4.5-year-old and my 1.5-year-old is giving me right now. You know,
Yeah.
I check myself, you know, where we are as a company, and in 3.5 years, 4 years, the amount of lives that we're changing. As much as I want to do more, like we are still impacting, like being grounded on knowing where we are in the journey. That was a big challenge, man. And it's not something that changes or goes away. Like you're gonna have days like that. And I think that's what goes back to the conversation we just talked about mentorship, right?
Yeah.
Like if you don't share that personal side of you to somebody, like you're never going to be able to work through that stuff, you know. And you got to unpack it. You got to unpack it. I think the better you know yourself, the better you keep accountable, the better you're honest with yourself and to others, um, creates reality. And the more you speak it, the more it comes true. Like I told myself that this was going to happen years ago, you know, that we were
Wow.
making this journey. That when I met my wife 8, 9 years ago, and we talked about, and I'm telling you right now, I was on the development side. We're going to do this. We're going to have this company. We're going to, and now we look back and we're there, right? So I truly
Wow.
believe in speaking that existence into life, and then talking out loud, so that people know and keep you accountable for it. But it is a mind shift. You got to shift it. It really, really is. That's probably the biggest thing that changed me and the trajectory of my career and where my family's at today. Big time.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. You're killing it, man. I appreciate that answer a lot. Okay, so as we wrap, or as we move into the fourth quarter here, with
Yeah.
what you're building, who you're helping, and if you can think of all of the touch points that you have right now, and the whole concept of 6 degrees of separation, what opportunities do you see to add value back to community, back to kind of where you came from, or issues kind of around you that you see present today? Like, is there anything that is included within like your own personal legacy that you see that, I mean, you just kind of said it, like where you start a few years ago and then where you are today, like you saw it, but now you're
Yep.
here. What's that
Yep.
next stage look like that you're looking at now, whether it's 2, 5, 10 years from now?
Yeah. No, that's a big question, and one that, if I'm going to get it recorded, is definitely going to keep me accountable to.
Oh,
But this is the
let's
first time.
go.
This is one of the first times I've ever said it out loud outside of a group setting or an intimate setting. Is there is a there is a big shift that's happening in America today, right?
Yeah.
Minority wealth, minority entrepreneurship, not just by race but by gender, is a
Come on.
big focus of mine. Like, I can't ignore that I am an immigrant to this country and a minority to this country. I feel like minorities are underserved. They're not being qualified enough. I know it's changing quite a bit in certain nationalities, but not all of them, right? How can we create more opportunities for that? That is something that is always very intentional in my mind, and how we can give back to the community. How can we empower more business owners to come into franchising? How can we have more franchisors be minority owned, right? So um, it is a movement that is happening. I love to be on the forefront of that. As you know, the median household income, the highest median household income today in America, the nationality is actually India. They have the highest median household income in America today. Um, then you have Chinese, Koreans, and I think the Caucasians are around seventh as the measurement goes today, right?
Oh,
How do we
interesting.
help? How do we help those individuals not just be W-2 employees, right, but also be small business owners that can start taking control of their own lives, right? I come from Seattle, Washington. We're in Washington, registration state, right? Costco, Microsoft, Amazon, Boeing, Starbucks, Nordstrom's, right? These are the companies that are based in Washington state. These are major employers, right? These are 15, 17, 30,000, 40,000,
Wow.
employment
Yeah.
opportunities within these organizations. But small business culture in Seattle is tough. It's not there, like it's really tough to be a small business owner with the taxes and the limitations. So, like, how do we kind of shift those W-2 employees more into entrepreneurship? How do we empower them? How do we continue building that cycle? Is something that is probably in the short term, 3, 5, 10 year, and then how do I take the platform that I have over the next 3, 5, 10 years to help continue to build that, right? Those are things that I'm looking to do, and not to deviate from that, but to build a more of a culture. Like, it needs to be a community, right? When Japan went through the tsunami, and when we went through Hurricane Katrina, you saw two very different cultures and how they reacted to trauma, right? And I can't help but gravitate towards the way the Japanese culture really gravitated towards helping each other as community and to share
Wow.
and to build and to
Yeah.
strengthen. And how do we build that here in America where we're so individualistic and it's all about how our platform is and what we do. Little beknownst to you, like I don't like being in front of a camera. I'm doing this because I feel like, God, over the last 20 years, I've seen enough to where I would love to share, the journey. And if I can impact people's lives, my staff has really convinced me that I have a story to tell, So
Yeah.
I'm out here. This is my second podcast ever.
Let's go. Come
Let's
on.
go, and if it impacts people's lives, it helps. I'm more than happy to do more. But like I'm more. I've always been a behind the camera guy than in front of it. But I appreciate this time to tell my story, man. I really do. It's been a journey. You're a empowering young man that's out there changing lives, and right away when I met you, we clicked, and that's a big thing, man. That's a big thing. There's power and energy, and if I can help you and your community in any way, that's what I'm here for.
Oh man, well, golly, I appreciate that, and you've done a great job. I'm proud to know that this is number 2 for you, and oh man, I fully resonate with that. I'm interested to keep in touch and hear about how that progresses over the years, because that was a big thing for me. I mean, before I got into franchising, before we owned our first Mosquito Joe franchise back in 2016. I was working in the inner city of South Dallas, and then before that, the west side of Chicago. And so empowering young men, young women, individuals who are living in the inner city that have come from just tough, gritty backgrounds, but have ambition, that have drive, that seek opportunity. And that's everything to me. And so I love that you said that. And you've got a synergy partner in me if you ever need it. All right, last question, and then I'll let you go because I respect your time. What do you say to that young person? They're young, maybe they're young in spirit, but they know it's time to get off of zero, but they're having a hard time taking that first step. What do you say to encourage that individual to go ahead and take the step?
Don't be afraid to fail. Don't let that stop you. Don't let that stop you. Your mindset is changing your actions to stop you from doing things, right? I don't know if this is fact either, but someone told me your mind has 15 seconds to make a decision if you're going to wake up and do something or not do it. And I'm going to challenge you that when that thought happens and you haven't, that you do it. And you do it, and you do it, and you do it. And you'll be surprised when you look back behind you how far you've come. But don't let that stop you. Failure is real. We've all gone through it. We didn't get through that today, but all the failures that I went through to get to here, but failure is real. Like we've all do it, and it's a part of life. And if that's stopping you, please, I beg you, don't let that stop you from taking the journey.
Love it, man. Love it. Song Om, ladies and gentlemen, Streetwise Nation, I hope you had a pen. If not, man, you're going to listen to this one twice because, man, this was fire. I appreciate you, audience. Give this a like, share it, 5 stars so other people can hear it. And as always, stay humble, stay hungry, stay streetwise. Peace.
All right, everybody, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for making it to the end. Hey, if this episode added any value to your life at all, please like it, share it, give me a 5-star review. It's the only way that this show is going to gain traction and help more people achieve their dreams. If you're ready to start your franchise journey, visit streetwisefranchising.com. Let's set up a time to talk. Hit me up on LinkedIn. Until next time, stay humble, stay hungry, stay streetwise. Peace.